Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California, this is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today, Secrets of Ancient Yogis to Train the Mind, with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have close to 40 members on Zoom and more than 50 members in our Facebook community. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness.
Thanks a lot, JM. Great to see you. Good to be back here and to be with all of you for this next hour. And I was thinking while coming on here how important spiritual fitness is, because everything we do in our lives and everything that we have around us is a manifestation of what's coming from inside us. And often as humans, because humans tend to be bright and like to figure things out, it's good to know the priority, good to prioritize and understand the sequence of events, how things are unfolding in our life, looking for causality. And of course, we'd like more order and peace in our life. So how do we attain that? Really, that's what the science of yoga addresses. The state of our consciousness is vital, because as a Sanskrit verse from one of the old texts say, a person who has developed peace of mind doesn't mind the external circumstances wherever he or she is, because wherever you go, there you are, old Buddhist saying. When you have that centeredness and when you're actually feeling happiness from within, then the external circumstances don't matter. Vice versa, if you don't have peace of mind, it really doesn't matter. And this is very true. It's 100% true. It doesn't matter what you have in your external environment. You won't be able to appreciate it or to be happy. So the secret to life is in developing our consciousness, because ultimately that's who we are. We're conscious beings. We just happen to be inhabiting a particular body right now. In fact, the way that the ancient texts talk about our body is it's a field. We're in a particular field right now, and you'll be in another field at another time. We're constantly changing fields. But when we have the tools to attend to our consciousness, then we can adjust everything in our lives. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the ancient secrets of the yogis. I feel fortunate in my life. I've had the opportunity to meet those teachers who have come from a tradition that has been passed down over generations and who have imbibed it. And I've walked with them, lived with them, listened to them extensively over years. I've practiced myself living in ashrams when I was young. I spent 13 years in an ashram, living a very simple life and practicing meditational techniques every day. I still do, but I just live in a different environment, which I found out doesn't matter that much, because when you learn the techniques and you have them ingrained in your life, then wherever you move to, whatever situation you're in, you can apply the same techniques and find that place where you can be blissful. In fact, a friend of mine once told me, because, after my time in the ashram as a monk, I did go to university. I studied business and also English literature. And later on, I started my own business for some time and felt the frenetic nature of the world. And once, when consulting a monk, one of my old colleague friends, about some anxiety I was having, he told me the secret to solving all problems in business and in relationships in the world. And he said, you have to be blissful. There's no replacement for that. If you're not feeling blissful, happy yourself, then really you can't deal with anything. And every situation seems difficult. You may be hanging up a garment and the garment falls off unceremoniously from the hanger, and that might upset you. Any small thing, if you're not blissful. Whereas if you do have that lightness of heart, which comes about through practicing yoga meditation, bhakti yoga especially, then all the various changes that go on, even the most horrendous events which might be unfolding in the world, that's something that you can deal with handily because your consciousness is in the right place. That's when we conceived of the name of this program, Spiritual Fitness. I like the combination because it seems that when you say fitness relates, everybody knows you can get a little fitter if you just adjust your diet and your exercise, right? We all know that. So sometimes the idea of self-realization or changing one's consciousness seems perhaps out of reach. But I thought the two concepts together that go well together, that is that there are ways in which if you practice every day, a few tenets of the ancient yoga system, then you can also become fit spiritually. There are symptoms of that, one of which I just mentioned, blissfulness. This is embodied in a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is scholars say is over 5,000 years old. And in the Sanskrit, it says, Brahma bhuta prasanatma na shochati na kangshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. It's a mouthful, but I'll break it down. So what is it? Brahma bhuta prasanatma. This means when you're situated in spiritual fitness, then you become prasanatma. Atma means yourself, and prasanna means happy. So you become happy in yourself for no apparent reason. It's not that you went to the mall and you got something and now you feel happy because you fulfilled the desire you've been hankering after for so long. But it's a kind of otherworldly happiness where there is no real cause to it. It's called a haituki. It just comes, it flows naturally from you. And there's also a sense of unity with the world that engenders compassion. This is a very powerful emotion that comes out when we touch the web of spirituality. And so Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na Shochati na Kangshati is very important. It means, Shochati means lamentation. Like, why didn't it go my way? And Kangshati means hankering. I have to have this to make myself complete. Those things diminish or go down to nothing. And then samak sarveshu bhute. Samak means equal. Sarveshu means all. Bhuteshu means other living entities. So this is a remarkable statement, but when one's in spiritual consciousness, when you're spiritually fit, you see other living entities with equality. And that means that you're seeing beyond the body. In other words, and this is, I would argue, the equality that everybody's looking for, the unity that we're looking for in the world that's embodied in the United States Constitution, is looking beyond the external. The skin deep beauty of the body. The body's just a temporary vessel. What's the real person? It's the entity that's animating the body, that's beyond it, that's actually beautiful. And in spiritually fit consciousness, we relate to people, not just people, but all living beings. Bhutana means all living entities. So you see also animals. They're conscious living beings on a spiritual platform. We're connected. And plant world, absolutely. Everything that is alive is ultimately a spiritual entity. They're just in different bodies temporarily. Some bodies, every body is different, but inside we have the same spiritual nature. So this is a summation of spiritual fitness, how you feel when that happens. And And as I began this monologue, it's important to be blissful. I mean, when you're feeling that the burden lifted from your head. For instance, if you were in a lot of debt, let's say, and you're really worried about it, and then someone came along and just, forgave all your debt and just wrote it off, said, okay, no more debt. How do you feel? Well, relieved. You might go for a little walk with kind of a skipping motion in your step. And so there's a kind of relief that we feel when we realize our spiritual nature is not tethered to the material world. That includes the material body and mind. Now, that seems like a strange thing to say, because oftentimes we assume that we are the body and mind, but there's a difference. Even in the most modern scientific research, the big problem is defining what is consciousness. There is no point at which we combine matter in all its different forms and then come up with consciousness. The ancient wisdom literatures say there's a difference between matter and spirit. So it's the root of our lives, our spiritual nature. And therefore, the practice of this kind of yoga is called Sanatan Dharma. Dharma means what is your nature always. And Sanatan means without any change, always. And Dharma means your true nature. So how to be in harmony with your true nature? Good news? Ready for a good news action broadcast? You have to say yes, or I can't tell you. I'm looking for a chat or a thumbs up. 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4. Thank you, Alifia. And thank you very much. Yes, the good news is, here's a description of our nature beyond the body and mind. Ananda amayo bhyasa means that our nature is blissful. Ananda means happiness. We're by nature happiness always. What gets in the way is misidentifying myself with the body and mind. So let's look at a few slides. First one I want to look at is the opening slide, actually, because sometimes I just go free form and start talking about all kinds of things. But I want to come back to the first slide. That is the introductory slide. Is there one before this that says, secrets of ancient yogis for training the mind? When I saw the graphic for this, it made me feel a little peaceful. And I'd like to know these secrets myself. And also here, when I thought about the presentation today, the state of your mind determines your level of satisfaction, the quality of your relationships, your level of success in all areas of your life. That's a pretty broad stroke, that last one. The quality of your relationships when I'm feeling complete in myself, when I feel whole. Then when I relate with others, I'm able to interact with them without becoming defensive or feeling offended and so forth. And satisfaction, there's one word to me that describes satisfaction. I was thinking about this yesterday on my walk. Enough. There's never a point at which the mind, when it's in an imbalanced state, says it's enough. As you think about this, there's a way in which my mind is always asking for one more thing, no matter what I get. But when I'm spiritually fit, then my mind realizes in the moment that I'm satisfied, I'm happy. at this very moment. I don't need anything else. It's enough. Whatever I have is enough. So now I'll just bring our attention to this 21 days spiritual fitness challenge. I just take your opinions on this. Do you think this would be difficult to add a few spiritual practices for 21 days? Has anyone tried? I mean, some of you are already doing this 21-day fitness challenge. For those who aren't, how does that sound as a period of time to stick to a few spiritual fitness principles, to try them out, to see if they work? What do you all think? Okay, first level of communication is the thumbs up and the emojis, emoji communication. Second level of communication with poor little me is on the chat box. And third is if you actually speak up. I can't tell you, I just have to tell you something from my heart. When I hear from you through the Zoom, your voices, it means the world to me. It's a big deal to me. So any of you, if at any time you want to speak up and just say, yeah, this is what I think, it really helps. Normally, when I give these talks in a corporate environment, we're in the same room together, so it's easier for me to coerce people into speaking. Okay, Jan, tell me what's coming in on the chat.
Sure, yeah. So I am seeing quite a few responses. So Sunita says, I've heard that it takes 21 days to form a habit. And
I'll just say something about that is that I'll tell you one thing. I don't know if 21 days, there's different theories, 21 days. There's some people say longer, but I can guarantee you one thing. If you don't do anything for 21 days and you just do whatever you're doing now, you're going to have the same situation 21 days from now. But 21 days is just, to me, it's arbitrary. It's not completely scientific, but it is a period of time. And if you apply anything deliberately for a period of time, with the speak of 3 weeks, it's going to have an effect on your consciousness. Yeah. Go ahead. What else, JM?
We have Kitchet. I think it's a Zoom name, says it takes 21 days to change or start a habit. Raj says, for those entering second half of their lives, I believe this is a must. Swati go, yes.
What is the second half of our life? That's a good question. Many of you know I had a spiritual teacher. He passed away in 1977. I met him in 1973, so I had 4 years with him. At one time I heard him speaking at a university, and someone said, "Isn't spiritual practice meant for people who are old?" And then my spiritual master said, "What is your definition of old?" And the professor didn't have an answer. So my guru said, "Old means about to die. Can you say you're any older or younger than I am?" Which I thought was a very witty answer, because we don't know how old we are in terms of when's our last breath, which is always kind of interesting, maybe even exhilarating or scary. So it is a good point, though, especially when the clock is ticking. You want to get yourself spiritually fit. Yeah, what else, JM?
Yes, Swati go, I think some Zoom name says yes. Subbu says, holiday season may not be the best time to commit to 21 days.
Or it may be, for that matter. It'll fortify you from certain things. Yeah, what else?
Deepak says, could you please go over the commitments for 21 days?
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't you just take us to, that section in the 21-day fitness challenge that shows body, mind, and spirit. I'm just going to explicate what they, how I follow them. Sure. If you do these things, any of these things, you're kind of living a monk's life in some ways. I mean, there are different levels of practice, but these are definitely doable. So in the 21-day fitness challenge, we've put it into 3 categories. So let's look at the picture first. Body. So you definitely have to take care of your body. This is one part. Just stay there for a sec. This is one part of the yogic teachings. Sometimes people take this as the all in all. It is all about the body. And you can do asanas all day long. You can do any kind of exercise, and you can ramp it up to 2, 4, 6 hours a day, and become amazingly fit. But there are a couple other aspects to our lives that are important. One of them is the body. And one of the reasons in the Yoga Sutra that Patanjali, sage of antiquity, who wrote about the yoga system and meditation, says that one should practice asanas is that the body needs to be comfortable enough so that you can be still for a little while. Because if you sit down and your legs hurt, your hip hurts, your back hurts, you're not going to be able to concentrate very well. So the asanas really are meant to make us a little more comfortable in our own body. And we should stay healthy. So here are a few points, and these parallel modern scientific wisdom. One is to regulate sleep. As you've been hearing during the pandemic, one of the ways to boost your immune system is make sure you get enough sleep. And the way it is stated by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is yukta hara viharasya yukta cheshyasya karmasu yukta swapna vabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. This verse says that a yogi can escape misery by being regulated in eating. Don't eat too much and don't eat too little, he says. Don't sleep too much and don't sleep too much or too little, and don't recreate too much or too little. This indication of yukta is balance. So regulating sleep is one of the yogic practices. It's an ancient secret that if you get enough sleep but not too much, you'll have that sweet spot. And highly recommend practicing waking up earlier. When you get up early, before the sun, you'll find that you have a treasure waiting for you, especially if you don't just get up and start watching CNN. If you get up and you have a practice waiting for you early in the morning, you'll find that the rest of your day becomes extremely productive, and you'll be insightful in the rest of the hours of the day. How does that sit with everybody? Do you mind getting up before the sun? Do you like getting up before the sun? Have you tried it lately? Have you watched a sunrise lately? Do you hate getting up early? Is it harder? 6 a.m. Gidget, thank you. Is it harder for everybody to get up? It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard?
Yes.
Here's the best wisdom I have about sleep and getting up early. Are you ready? Is there a drum roll available anywhere? Thank you very much, Josh. I had no idea you had that talent. So here's the best advice. Try to go to bed earlier. Electric lights and electricity in general help overstimulate us, and we stay up later and later. And especially in the winter, don't you feel like hibernating sometimes? I mean, the sun goes down. There's an indication, hey, party's over. Let's go to sleep. So, this is a trick I know from years and years of getting up early. I've been doing it since 1973, waking up very early in the morning. And you can't cheat sleep, because it'll cheat you right back again when you're driving or sitting in a class or something like that. So if you can go to bed earlier, that's a trick. And a lot of people can't, because we're so used to electric light and stay up late. Sun goes down and it's like, hey, we're just getting started. So you have to kind of rearrange your circadian rhythms and go to bed earlier. Also, I recommend for those who are serious about this, and this is a technological trick, probably not one of the yogis, but there are lights you can buy. I have one. It's an alarm light. So instead of an alarm clock going off, this very beautiful light that looks like the sun coming up comes on in my room. And the light, amazingly, is a softer way to wake up rather than ring, 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 which can jangle your nerves. So get up early, try regulating sleep. Don't do anything drastic, please, but mess around with it a little bit. Just toy with it, even if it's 5 minutes earlier, because the body is so good at homeostasis and finding plateaus. So you have to be gentle. Don't bully yourself. Don't bully your body or mind, but just try to gently move back the alarm and get yourself up a little earlier than you did before, hopefully before the sun. Does that sound okay? Cold water shower, yes. Mayank, he's a yogi. He teaches yoga. He knows these things. I know he lives in the wilderness a lot. Cold water shower early in the morning really does get you going. It's a yoga trick. And if you take a warm shower or even a hot shower, take a cold one afterwards. So it may not be so inviting, especially in the winter, that, okay, it's freezing cold. Let me jump in a freezing cold shower. Does that sound great to everybody? If not, if you're not trained in that, if you're not used to it, then take your regular shower, but just try it gently at first, gradually take cool, and then try a cold shower. You will be surprised at that how much it brings your mind to an alert state. And this is counterintuitive, but on a cold day, when you take a cold shower, you're warmer the rest of the day because all your pores start saving heat and everything like that. Okay, that's body. As far as sleep goes, regulate sleep. Next thing is vital, eat healthy. You are what you eat. So a rainbow diet is especially powerful, fresh, in season, local, any of these things, but you're cutting back on junk food, processed food. The thing is this, it's not just body, it's also mind and spirit. And, this is a secret from the ancient wisdom literatures, and that is when people who have bad consciousness cook, I mean, get ready for this, it's kind of astounding, but their consciousness goes into the food. And if you want a modern rendition of this, there's an old movie called Like Water for Chocolate. I think it was in Spanish. And that's the theme of the movie, that actually whoever cooks, you just can't replace mom's cooking. You go home and there's some love in it, right? So this is one of the tenets of yoga, actually. Make sure you eat food with a higher vibration. If you just get it from anywhere, from anyone, you're taking in their consciousness. I mean, that's something to discuss, but if you're more careful about your diet, what you put in your mouth, and there's a lot more to be said about food and eating healthy, but it's not just, whether it's raw or whether it's, organic or anything like that. It has to do with the vibration of the food, how it was cooked. Okay. So, and the next one is to walk daily. Walking is a really good exercise. It's not necessarily a yogic exercise, but it's nice because there's no extra paraphernalia. You don't have clubs or special paraphernalia you have to marshal in order to get it all together. But it's kind of a nice thing. And you can actually do some of your mantra meditation when you walk and keep the blood flowing, keep healthy. So it's part of these are 3 aspects of body. So let's just come back to the Zoom room just for a second to see if anybody wants to say anything about body, because we're going to go on to mind and spirit in just a second.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, like a couple of weeks ago when we discussed over the spiritual fitness, I had a hard time in the morning to go out for a walk. But since I promised in front of many that I want to try one thing, so somehow I'm able to, accomplish at least in 20 minutes or 30 minutes walk in the morning. I know it's hard because there's rain, there is 100 excuses, there's would be meeting and all those things, but somehow. So what I was thinking, it is important that we have a fixed agenda when we get up in the morning. If we get up early, if we don't have any agenda lined up, then you may go back again to sleep after taking a shower. So we need to have something to do after we wake up. So
yeah, okay, this is a really good point. And I've advocated for this before. The best time to start your morning, if you want an amazing morning, which will lead to an amazing day, start the night before. Start the night before. Organize your space, wherever you're sleeping and wherever you wake up to a orderly set of things that you're going to do. So as an example, in the morning, I do my mantra meditation. That's one of the things. So I have several ways that I count my mantras. One of them is on beads. They're called chanting beads. Sorry, I have to grab them. Nope, they're farther away than I thought. And so I'll have them set in a place, and then whatever I'm going to read, I have set up. And when I wake up to those things, they're already waiting for me. That's a lot better than just waking up to chaos and trying to put it all together at the same time. Yeah, so these are really good points. And thank you for your testimonial, because it helps to hear these things. Let's take one more from Body. Yes, JM.
I was just going to say, there was a question on Zoom chat. What time do you wake up?
What time do I wake up?
Yes.
These days, I hate to say it, because then some people might think I'm like extreme, but I get up at 3:45. So at 3:45, I have enough time to get my spiritual practices done before the really, busy other kinds of things I have to attend to start to unfold. And it's really peaceful and quiet. And really, I can do my routine and see, the ancient wisdom literatures actually demarcate different times of the day and say that they have different qualities. So you've all heard me talk about sattva, right? There's these three modalities by which we're moved in the world. And the topmost, the best modality to be related with and to bring into one's body, mind, is sattva. It's the modality of light and virtue, clarity, and so forth. So early in the morning, there's a period, it's called a muhurta, an hour and 40 minutes. The day is divided into these muhurtas. And the muhurta that's best for spiritual practice, I mean, anytime's good for spiritual practice, but this muhurta is called Brahma muhurta. It's the spiritual period of the day, the most advantageous. And it happens an hour and 40 minutes before the sun comes up. So if you can hit the ground running before the sun comes up with your spiritual practice, oh boy, it's amazing, because you'll notice that you have 2 days, or it's like you get 3 days or 2 or 3 days in one, rather than just one you wake up to, okay, go. That's not good. Don't just rush out there into the world, because it's too confusing. Nobody can handle it, especially these days. It's just overbearing. So have a little molecule of blissfulness in your heart that, oh, I took care of my spiritual fitness early, before everybody else wakes up. Do that. And, so that's why getting up earlier. But you don't have to get up at 3:45. It's just my custom. You can, do what works for you. But I do recommend getting up sometimes before the sun, and see how you feel.
A follow-up question was, what time do you sleep?
Well, it's I like to be asleep by around 8:30, because then I get enough sleep, and then when I get up early, it's not a big deal. And if there's times when I have to stay up later for one reason or another, I just move my wake up time a little bit, because as I said before, don't try to cheat sleep, because it'll cheat you, and don't try to bully your body either, because It doesn't like to be bullied.
So I
It
have
like,
one question on
yes,
that.
please.
So, I don't know what has happened for last 5 years. My body will wake me up at 5:30 in the morning, no matter what time I go to bed. So I try to go to bed by 10 o'clock or before 10. But sometimes, like, especially during pre-COVID times, if you have guests over the weekend, then it feels embarrassing. Like I start yawning by 9:30, 10 because, I think my body is gotten so much used to that schedule. And even if I sleep at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock on the weekends, I will still wake up by 5:30 and I cannot fall back to sleep again. And then I feel tired the whole day.
Well, you might try taking a nap, in the
Yeah.
afternoon, because
Yeah.
naps can also, there's a book, there was a study on sleep done at UC Berkeley. I forget the name of the author. Somebody can look it up, but it was a extensive research into sleep. It's a very mysterious phenomenon, actually. There's no really pat answers for everything. So my best advice is just to gently try some different things. The first point is, if you realize it's a priority and you try to regulate it gradually as much as you can, especially by going to bed earlier if you can. The earlier you can go to bed, and apparently these hours that you get sleeping are cumulative also. If you lose hours, it's really hard to make them up, especially when you get older.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think many people also advise like don't obsess about sleep or don't count. Then you're constantly thinking, oh, I'm not sleeping, and that leads to kind of goes in a vicious cycle. Like don't
Oh
obsess
boy.
about
Yeah. The
sleeping.
human mind, eh? What kind of tangles it can get into.
I
Yeah,
have a question about sleep as well.
sure.
I had heard that when you are happy, you're blissful, like you started out with, right? Your body doesn't need as much sleep because it doesn't need to recuperate from the stress or anything. But if you are stressed, if you're anxious, your body needs that sleep to calm you down so that it can regenerate. And it is, I wanted to understand your take on this.
Well, in general, the body creates what's called cortisol when you're stressed. And cortisol can actually be, the body produces it even when you're sleeping, if you're stressed and you're sleeping as well. And cortisol is actually really, it has some function in our body for flight or fright, fright or flight. Yeah. However, if it's pouring in all the time, it tends to be destructive. And it does create problems. And just in general, I think I put that very broad stroke point about when you're able to use yogic techniques in your life and you start to feel that spiritual fitness, then what you get is a kind of panacea and everything's affected. Yes, when you feel more blissful, you're going to, your sleep is going to be more effective, I would say. So you may not need as much because there's deep sleep and there's fitful sleep. There's sleep, according to these studies, that when you're sleeping, you're not deeply sleeping. You're still processing a lot of chatter and you're thrashing and so forth. So when you're in a more blissful state, when you're relaxed, when you're happy, you can go into that deeper sleep. I've experienced it myself, actually. If I'm working on an intense a project or something, it's really bothering me, it's really hard to sleep. Don't you have that? And do you notice that, when that's over, that, it's like your body is
Yes.
kind of, hey, I'll tell you one. This is when before the lockdown, I was traveling, 150,000 miles a year, and I'd getting on planes all the time. So I noticed this about my body and sleep. I'm going, what to speak of getting on the airplane. And so I get on and I'm sitting there, bags are in the overhead bin, I carved out my space, everything's okay. And then as soon as the plane kicks back, that little nudge you feel when they're kicking back now? Olivia?
Yes.
You know that
I'm
sound?
sorry, I'm on mute. Yes.
Here's me. Here's the thing. It kicks back and then I'm knocked out immediately. And sometimes I wake up in the air. So the way I interpret that is that there's nothing else you can do right now. And the body just lets go. And it's remarkable how interconnected we are with the body and all of its functions. So you make a really valid point. There is a systemic beneficial effect when we take to these yogic practices. And it does affect our sleep, and it does lower our cortisol levels. In fact, these studies on meditation these days are profound. They always have been. Even when I studied psychology at San Francisco State University, there were studies about meditation even back then that showed the remarkable biological effects on the body. And nowadays there's so many more studies that show the systemic effects, beneficial effects. Why are you
Thank you so
smiling, Jen?
much.
Oh, no, thank you. You always have good stuff. JM, what do you got there? You're smiling.
Yes, there was a comment. A couple of people have commented about the author Matt Walker, I think is the person who did the study on Berkeley's sleep.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then Yuri mentions, I set my alarm for 2 hours before wake up time so that when I wake up the first time, I'm happily going back to sleep knowing I have 2 more hours of sleep.
Yeah, I have a friend who used to do that. In fact, Radio Shack used to have an alarm that, you could set for 3 times. And I don't know why you did it, but now I know because you're telling me the psychology behind it. Yeah, very interesting. Anyway, think about sleep. Don't just let it happen. Try to very gently experiment with it. And I do recommend trying to come up a little earlier. Let's look at some of the other aspects. We don't want to skip mind or spirit in the 21-day fitness challenge. So mind, oh boy, what is the mind? It's a physical element, albeit very subtle. It's part of the material universe. Whereas, as you'll note, that I said earlier, we are not part of the physical universe. We're observers of that. So we're not our minds. The mind is not the self. It's an instrument like software is an instrument. And the mind is very subtle. You only get one of them in this body. You've got one set of software. So the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras say, take care of it, train it. Okay, here are some of the tenets in the spiritual fitness regimen. Wake up to an affirmation. Don't use a clock radio where the news comes on. You don't need that. It's just putting in information that's going to bring you to a superficial level in the mind. Wake up to a very powerful affirmation. We created some. We can share them with you, the ones that I use, or you can use your own, but use something very positive. Oh, here's one that JM put up. Today, I focus on the present moment, which is the only point of power and the only time I have. That's a good way to start. You can also start the first words out of your mouth. Use one of the mantras that we give at the end of this program every week. A mantra is a spiritual sound vibration. So instead of anything else, say that. You'll notice that it kind of boots up the spiritual part of your mind when you do that. The next is start the day with a map. This is a sattvic habit to be organized. So rather than letting life happen to you, write it down. What are your priorities for the day? Oh boy, is that powerful. Next is manage screen time. We just threw that in there because it's so pervasive. Screens are everywhere. And here's the best advice. Be deliberate when you look at a screen. Why are you going on it? If you don't have a specific result you're trying to get out of it, then have something else near your screen that you can divert your attention to that will be more wholesome to get away from the addiction to screens. Very helpful for the mind. These are 3 light and easy practices that if you apply for 21 days, even if you can't do them completely, at least struggle with them a little bit and you'll notice where you're at. And then the third one is spirit. So what is spirit? It's not something amorphous. It's who you are. It's actually the most solid of all the elements we're talking about here, because the body is made of destructible elements, whereas the conscious being that you are, called Atma, is indestructible. You're bulletproof. You can't be cut, you can't be dried, you can't be drowned, nothing. Who you are is an entity that is beyond the frailties of the material nature. So how do you attend to your Atma, to yourself? Through spiritual fitness. So do mantra meditation. There are certain sound vibrations that degrade us in this world. The mantra itself is like a seed. If you order seeds in the growing seeds from the best places, and you look at the package and you say, oh, if I put this in the ground, such and such is going to grow. I'm going to get a cucumber. And you know that it's an heirloom cucumber. So mantras come like that also in seed form. And when you take time to do mantra meditation every day by repeating the mantra and listening to it and bringing your mind in as a practice back to the mantra in focus, you will find this the benefits of that spiritual sound vibration pervading your life. The next two are perform one act of selfless service. If you want to make it really selfless, do it anonymously. How does that sound? Why would I do that? I don't get any credit for it. Try doing some anonymous service, even if it's a small act. And you'll notice, like if you live with somebody else, do something without claiming that you did it or demonstratively doing it so that everybody knows that it's tit for tat, you did it, so they should do something for you. Just go out of your way and try it, because this is actually one of the ways, it's a mode of moving in the world. And service for service, I'm not reward seeking. And when you do that type of activity, you'll notice that you become more aware of your higher self automatically. Isn't that amazing? And the whole way of organizing your life around your livelihood for that is called karma yoga. You're doing your work, but it's not because, oh, I want the fruit. Okay, you have to live, take some of that, but use the resources you get, the rewards that you get in a selfless way for service. And you'll notice that your consciousness expands and you become naturally happy and blissful from that. Counterintuitive to what we're taught in a consumer society. Be a good consumer and get as much as you can and you'll be happy. A lot of advertisements indicate something like that. Or am I mistaken? Do you all get that impression also? That certain advertisements? I even remember from the 60s, Mick Jagger singing, I can't get no satisfaction. And he talks about a man comes on the radio and he's saying that you can't be a man because you don't smoke or something like that. There's this pervasiveness of consumerism, just be a good consumer and also work hard to get the rewards. But these yoga secrets are very subtle, but they affect your spiritual nature. And finally, keep a gratitude journal. If you write down what you're grateful for, gratitude, as we discussed last week, keeps you in the present moment. I was thinking about that today on my morning walk. I was just appreciating the beauty of the leaves from the trees that are pasted on the sidewalk now. It's a little damp and the leaves are so beautiful. And I was just feeling gratitude for the oxygen and for the beauty. And I felt myself like absorbed in the present moment. And I was thinking how you really can't be in anxiety when you're in gratitude at the same time. The two things are conflicting. So gratitude sort of pushes out of the way all the anxiety and all the worries about the future or the lamentation about the past. So let's come back to the Zoom room and just see if you have any questions about the 21-day spiritual fitness challenge. There's some technical parts to it where you can sign up and then keep a score of how you're doing. What do you all think?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So let's say I'm a vegetarian and I don't like meat in general, but I have an option of, like, let's say, feeding 30 people with a chicken burger because that comes cheap, or I get to feed 15 people with a vegetarian burger because that is expensive than the chicken burger. So what should we do in that case? Because I have an option of feeding more people, or I have an option of feeding less people, but uh, because that is more expensive. So what to do in that thing?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And let me give you the answer from one of our teachers, Patanjali, an ancient sage, and he writes about this in the Yoga Sutras. Are you familiar with that literature?
Yeah, I am,
Yeah.
but I haven't read it. Yeah.
Okay. Um, it's an authoritative writing about yoga and meditation. In fact, this is where the modern practice of meditation derives its authority and the practices from the Yoga Sutra. So he talks about preliminary ways to prepare your mind for meditation. And he says the most important of all the aspects of preparing your mind through lifestyle is what's called ahimsa. Ahimsa means uh, not committing violence to other living beings. Of course, just by our breathing and walking around, we commit violence. So what it means is, whenever you have an option, choose the nonviolent option. That's the best one. And he gives this example. He said, in the jungle, the biggest footprint is the elephant's footprint. It covers all the other footprints. So the other footprints uh, are other considerations one might make, but he says the ahimsa footprint, it supersedes all the other ones. So he said, if in doubt, follow that. So whatever's the most nonviolent way that you can conduct yourself in your life is the best way, according to the ancient scriptures. Does that help?
But isn't that be hints are towards other people whom I can feed, just because it's much more cheaper way to do it. So I understand, on one part it is uh, hints are towards chicken, but on the other hand it is hints are towards human hunger also, right?
Well, one thing is human hunger comes back constantly. And no matter how you feed, whoever you feed, the hunger is going to come back. So in some ways, the exercise of trying to help somebody by feeding, even in the Bible, Lord Jesus said you can feed a man a fish, or you can teach him to fish. I'm not advocating fishing either, but the metaphor was there to say, best to give somebody the wherewithal to help themselves. And when it comes to distribution, just because somebody's eating, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily helped them. But if you give them knowledge and a platform where they can help themselves, that's the best. But just as far as distributing food for that topic, Patanjali would come down on the side of um, don't give people something that would implicate them in himsa, not ahimsa, but himsa, because
Got it.
they could become complicit in that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
And another
sure.
question, this the book that you're referring to. So on, I think, is it the same on which preface says that you should not read it without the your guru's acknowledgement? Can we still read it or no?
Well, you could read it. In fact, I recommend a particular copy written by a friend of mine, Professor Bryant. He has written an exhaustive and very powerful commentary on the Yoga Sutras. Little light reading for the pandemic. It's a huge book. Professor Bryant, you'll find it on Amazon. It's probably expensive, but you can read it there. It's always good to have some kind of mentorship, but you can read the book. In fact, he gives a lot of explanations there that so you won't be confused, or rather, his explanations will give you clarity.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Thanks for such good questions. Okay, JM, where are we here?
So we are 5 minutes. There are questions coming up. If there are any questions, one is from, I think they are asking for title of the book. I can send the title of the book in the chat. So there was one more question was, we always point to head when we talk about mind. We know there is no mind entity there, but why do we do that, pointing to head?
Yeah, it's a good question. In fact, my friend, I was once giving some presentation at some grammar schools in Hawaii, and we went into the classrooms to talk about some yoga philosophy. The teachers wanted us to come there, and I gave a class to some kids, and I've never seen such a bored audience in my life. And then my friend said, you see, you don't know what you're doing. Watch me. And we went into the next class, and he played Simon Says, which is an old game where you have to follow what Simon says. Otherwise you're kicked out of you're eliminated from the game. So he played that game, and the last kid standing, he said, okay, Simon says, point to yourself. And he wasn't sure where to point. And all the kids laughed. And that's when he started his talk about where we actually are within this vessel, the human body. And he pointed to the heart. So the heart region is really where it's considered the software. There are various energy centers in the body, according to the philosophy of yoga, called chakras. And each one of them has a role to play. They're interconnected. But it's true, you won't find necessarily all of the intelligence or whatever, which is it's software. How are you going to point to it necessarily? Just in the head. JM, anything else?
They were asking for title of the book. I've pasted the link, so you can look at the book.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's very academic. He's an academic, and he writes that. But I trust that translation, and he's a practitioner himself, and he has a lot of powerful insights. Not only that, he includes the commentaries of the previous great teachers. So you get a tapestry of good ideas from the previous sages. So JM, just would you in the slideshow go to the very last couple slides? Because I want to leave you with a couple more practical ideas about the secrets for training the mind, because that's what we promised. The spiritual fitness, 21-day spiritual fitness program, sign up for it and try it. You have nothing to lose. It's free. And it'll bring, when you practice it and you come back to this session, you'll have a lot to say. I tried this, I tried that, right, Josh? He does it. Okay, so keep going. Yes, so chitta means the mind. It's actually the mind that makes us happy or distressed. And these are 4 categories of ways in which the mind becomes pacified and peaceful, or starting with contracted. When the mind contracts, we become overwhelmed by the content therein. So reward-seeking work, unregulated senses, no spiritual goals or practice, and material sound vibration are the big 4. And how do you expand the chitta, your mind? Anonymous service. Try it, please. Regulate your senses. Try starting with sleep. It's the big one. And also eating. Spiritual practice with goals. That's something we can talk more about. And purify the sound vibration. So the ways to purify the sound vibration, you can do japa. On the next slide. Oh, Yeah, and this is a mantra. Be methodical, but dispassionate. When you're dealing with the world, deal with it, but be dispassionate. Practice that. That's one of the techniques for controlling the mind. Uh, don't worry about it. Just troubleshoot whatever you have to go through, but don't become overwhelmed by these situations. You just do the best you can in a dispassionate way. And finally, mantra meditation. Mantra meditation brings spiritual energy into your mental system, and it purifies your chitta, it expands it. And when you become accomplished at doing this, you'll find that you can repair to any place and do your mantra, and you'll find yourself centered and purified. So here are a couple of mantras. The first one I recommend is Nitai Gauranga, and it goes like this. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. And then after you chant that mantra, which I would recommend chanting for at least a couple of minutes. I just did it for a few seconds to give you an idea. Then the last one is the Maha Mantra, and it goes like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These are two examples of mantra meditation, and I've already run past the time, but I just want to see if there's any last reflections that any of you have from anything that we said or talked about during today's session. 3 ways. One is through mental telepathy. Second one, right in the chat box. And third one is to speak up. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead, JM. Tell me what's trending.
Yeah, so Pramila, Victoria say thank you. Essence says got a lot of
Thank you. Yes.
Got a lot of practical tips today. Thank you very much. It always feels great after listening to your sessions. That's SN. Carrie says thank you. Raj, take up 21 days challenge. C. Gokul says thank you very much. Awesome. Shwek, I think this is coming from Facebook. In order to live a meaningful life with purpose and balance, we need to maintain our physical, mental, and spiritual health. Kim says thank you so much. S. Swatiko says thank you. Shilpa says for 21 days challenge, thank you. Subhadra Deepak says thank you. And Alifia says, can talk about sexual energy next time.
We can touch on that.
And Gidget says, when does challenge begin? Challenge is currently in progress for November, and beginning next week, we'll open up for December. You can go to, I'll paste the link where to go and participate challenge. You can start anytime and continue for 21 days. Mayank says, thank you. Bianca says, lamentations are time lost, which I could get rid of the load. We'll try the challenge. Aditya Mukta says, thank you. Paman says, thank you. Alifia says, I always feel good after this session. Shilpa says, please let me know when the next challenge starts. I look forward to the session every Friday. Thank you, Vaish and JM.
Oh, boy. Well, anyway, you all just made my day. Thank you very much. That was an inundation. And I'm going to read all of these because they're very meaningful to me. My time with you is very meaningful, and I thank you. When I say thank you for your kind attention, I really mean it, because I feel it, and I always look forward to being with you. Hope the 21-day fitness challenge fits somewhere in your life. Try it out and bring back the results of your experimentation. It's very interesting when you try it out and then come back and say, hey, that was hard, that was easy, this worked, that didn't work. And you'll have realizations, I guarantee you. It'll be really nice. Okay. Thank you, JM and Shweka. Thanks for making sure everything was working properly. And we'll see you all next week. Best advice for the week: always keep the transcendental sound vibration going. It changes everything else. If you can't do anything, just make sure you bring transcendental sound vibration. And the best of the vibration comes from the mantra.
Can I ask you a last question?
Okay.
Which shloka you quoted, from which chapter, and what shloka number from Bhagavad Gita you said about the food and the sleep?
Oh, yeah, that's from the 6th chapter.
Uh-huh.
Yuktahara
Oh,
viharascha.
yuktahara viharasya. Okay, got
You
it.
know that verse, right?
Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmasu yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha.
That's
Is this
it.
the one? Okay, thank you.
Yes, you got it. Yogo bhavati dukkhaha means that dukkhaha, well, you know this, I'm just saying for everyone else.
Dukkhaha, yeah.
Dukkha means misery.
Misery inside.
Ka means akash or space. And du means bad. So this means when the chitta, our conscious, when our mind space contracts, it's dukkha, and we become overwhelmed by the samskars in our mind, the impressions. But when we expand it, then it becomes happy. So dukkha is an interesting word. Ha means to kill. So dukkha means if you want to kill misery, then do these things. Regulate your life in these ways. And one of the ways you can try it practically is the 21-day fitness challenge. Shweka gave us 6.17 in the Gita. Thanks, Shweka. She's our resident pundit. Thanks, Shilpa, for asking that question. That was helpful for everybody. Okay, we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.